Here is a long, engaging story written in plain paragraphs with emotional depth, smooth pacing, and a powerful hook, perfect for a 15-minute YouTube narration. He posted for a ranch cook at noon. A single widow with children answered the notice. The wind had just begun to settle over the plains when Clay Maddox hammered the notice into the leaning post outside the general store. Ranch cook needed room, board, and fair wages. Apply in person. Maddox Ranch, noon. He didn't expect much of a turnout. Folks knew the Maddox place was miles from town, known for hard work and even harder silence. It had been 3 years since his wife died, and though he never said it aloud, the empty house felt hollower by the day. He wasn't posting the notice for company, just for help feeding the ranch hands. Or so he told himself. At exactly noon, just as the sun pressed down on the dusty boards of the porch, a wagon rolled into view. Its wheels creaked, its mare looked tired, and sitting at the reins was a woman with a baby bundled beside her. 2 more children, 1 boy and 1 girl, peered over the edge of the splintered bed of the wagon. Her dress was faded but clean, and her eyes held more strength than fear. "My name's Ada Sullivan," she said, stepping down carefully. "I came about the notice." Clay blinked, not expecting a woman alone, especially one with children. "You see what the notice says, ma'am. It's a rough place. Hard land, long days." She met his gaze evenly. "Rough is all I've ever known. We just buried my husband last winter, and the children need food, not pity. I can cook for an army. If you'll give us a chance, we won't be trouble." Clay hesitated, one hand resting on the post as if it could answer for him. The ranch hands behind him watched with curiosity. No one spoke. Finally, he gave a slow nod. "Unload your things. Supper's at 6. The Maddox Ranch had not seen a woman's shadow in years. The bunkhouse kitchen was dusty, the stove black with neglect. Ada tied on an apron like a soldier strapping on armor. Her children, Emily, 12, Jonah, 8, and baby Ruth, followed orders without question. They swept floors, gathered eggs, and fetched water while she coaxed life from the rusty stove and simmered stew scented with thyme and onions. That first meal startled the ranch hands into silence. They were used to beans and burnt meat at best. Ada fed them hot bread, potatoes seasoned with rosemary, and tender beef stew. Jonah shyly carried plates to the table, and Emily refilled coffee cups like she'd done it all her life. Clay sat at the end of the long table, his spoon stilled halfway to his mouth. The smell, the warmth, the quiet hum of children's footsteps, it tugged at something deep and long unattended. He cleared his throat and muttered, "Good food," as though admitting more would break something inside him. Weeks passed. The ranch ran smoother than it had in years. Ada rose before dawn, baby Ruth tied against her back in a sling, and had breakfast ready before the men saddled their horses. She never complained when supplies ran low or when a storm knocked a shutter loose in the middle of the night. She stitched torn shirts, taught Emily to mend ropes, and scolded Jonah gently when he followed the men to the corral. But there were whispers in town. Some folks said Clay Maddox was desperate to hire a widow with children. Others claimed Ada was looking for a new husband. Neither was true. She slept in a small room near the kitchen with her children bundled close. Clay spent his days in the fields and his nights smoking on the porch, staring at the stars like they owed him answers. One evening, a rattlesnake coiled near the chicken coop. Jonah screamed, and before Clay could reach him, Ada snatched a shovel and ended the threat with one clean strike. When it was done, she trembled only a little. Clay took the shovel from her, his voice low. "You didn't have to do that alone." She wiped her brow. "I've done worse alone." That night, when the children were asleep, Clay knocked on the doorframe of the small kitchen room. Ada looked up from darning Jonah's socks. "You're not alone here," he said quietly. Her eyes softened, just a fraction. "Some days I forget that's possible." A new season settled over the land. Baby Ruth took her first steps on the kitchen floor. Emily began teaching the ranch hands, children their letters on Sundays. Jonah followed Clay everywhere, asking questions about horses, cattle, and storms. Slowly, a fragile sense of belonging took root. Yet Ada carried a fear she didn't speak of, fear that if she failed, Clay would send them away. One night, after a supply wagon overturned in the river and half the flour was lost, she braced herself for anger. Instead, Clay stepped into the kitchen, rain still dripping from his hat, and said, "We'll get by. You've done more for this place than you know." Ada's lip trembled with relief she refused to show. "Thank you." It was Emily who asked the question no one else dared. One chilly morning, she stood beside Clay as he saddled his horse. "Are we staying for good, Mr. Maddox?" He paused, gripping the saddle horn. Do you want to? Emily nodded. Mama smiles more here. Jonah sleeps without nightmares. And baby Ruth says your name before anyone else. Clay swallowed hard. Then I reckon you're staying. That night, he sat with Ada on the porch, the sky washed in violet dusk. The children slept inside, worn out from chores and laughter. I never meant to find a family again, he said quietly. I never meant to ask for one, she replied. The silence between them was soft, no longer hollow. He turned his weathered hands over, palms up, as though offering something invisible. She laid her hand atop his, not as a promise, but as an answer. By the time spring painted the fields in wildflowers, the Maddox Ranch wasn't just a place of work, it was a home stitched together by loss, grit, and unexpected grace. The notice Clay posted at noon had been simple, almost forgettable. But the woman who answered it carried more than a skillet and a tired heart. She brought life back to a ranch that had nearly forgotten its own. And in doing so, she found the one thing she thought was gone forever, a place where she and her children were wanted. If you'd like. A title variation. Story broken into episodes. Dialogue added. Narration pacing for voiceover. Just let me know.